congrats on 40 years.
Thank you so much.
I kind of want to go back and start a little bit when I discovered you, like probably most Americans. No Fuel Left for the Pilgrims,
Yes.
of course. I can't remember if I saw the video first for Sleeping My Day Away or if I back in those days, I would just buy stuff because it looked cool. And I remember picking up the album and listening and just my jaw dropped. I'm like, this is amazing. And it is still one of my all-time favorite albums. I knew you guys were different, and it was just such a cool freaking sound. So can we back up? This has always been on my mind, too. No Fuel Left for the Pilgrims came out, and they instantly kind of put you in with the hair band scene. But I always thought, I went back and listened to the first couple albums. I'm like, well, that was nothing like the hair band scene. So
Exactly.
Did you get signed off of the, from what you did on the first two albums, or did you write No Fuel and then get a record deal over here? Can you take us through that process?
Definitely. See, the first two albums were kind of a little bit too funny. That was more like a dress-up thing, and we were sticking our toe in the waters of the rock and roll scene and see what's what. And because we grew up on the punk scene, and there was we were a big part of the punk scene, but the punk scene were like 200 people in Copenhagen, and half of those guys rode skateboards, and the other half were goth-looking. So it was like a very, very small community, and we were into that post-punk community. The thing was that it turned more and more sour and dour. It was like the whole rock and roll spirit had disappeared, so there was no Ramones, no Sex Pistols. It was definitely more Public Image Limited and stuff like that. So we thought, let's shape things up. So we did some kind of country punk, cowpunk thing where, speed up Johnny Cash. And we had a great time, and we toured Europe and Scandinavia, and we were having a party, and we were being promiscuous, and we were drinking, and we were taking drugs, and we were doing everything that a rock band should. But in some ways we did it on false pretense, because we were not a rock band. We were just happy-go-lucky, don't know what we're doing, kind of dumb and young. More or less came back from the tour. We had some kind of mental hangover. Okay, we've done everything it says in the Rock and Roll Handbook, but we're still putting on cowboy hats and putting cardboard cactuses on stage. And we were, how it is when, a hangover suddenly becomes like a big existential crisis, right? You question everything you do because you're totally hungover. We need to do something that's more like a blues for 22-year-old. We need to get rid of all this dress up. We simply need to be something that we are instead of something that we're not. So we were definitely instigators, and that totally on our own. There was no interference. We even made songs while we were at our old record company, and then another record company called Medley picked us up halfway through because of some of the demos we made. So we were definitely doing that whole movement ourselves. We reincarnated because we felt we needed to do something that was closer to us. We were looking for where is that energy that used to be in the punk rock scene? Where's that energy that you just want to, let's make a party, let's full of energy. And of course we were looking towards America, and there was definitely some blues rock, hard rock and blues rock, and there were some of the hair metal bands that were more sleazy, and there was something that we could relate to, but still we felt that we needed to keep the punk way, so to speak. And also in Sweden and Finland, they really know how to do that kind of sleaze blues. As a band like Helicopters, a band like Backyard Babies, they're not dressing up, and it's not like commercial. So, and we were looking for something that really had everything in it without being too commercial. And of course, we were looking to American scene, but there's a scene here that takes care of a lot of that energy. So we were definitely doing some of that movement towards that scene ourselves.
Now, you were touring with more of those bands too, right?
Yeah, but we toured with a band called Seahawks in the UK. We toured with Badlands. We toured with Badlands.
Oh, yeah, sure.
In America. I mean, we had some funny experiences, even in Europe with LA Guns and Skid Row, where we were put in between those. They were touring together, and we were put in between those two bands because they needed to sell some tickets in Düsseldorf or wherever. And there was like a bad blood between us, but like Skid Row was like, especially Sebastian Bach was like an asshole in that sense that he was like, oh, you don't come in here and divide the bands. We were like, hey, it's not our plan. I mean, we're just here to sell some tickets. So there was some little bit of bad blood in that whole scene.
Sure.
So we definitely felt apart, and being Danish at that point, it wasn't really a plus that you came from another place.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a plus that you had an accent. It wasn't a plus that you had a different angle and stuff. There was definitely an industry going on. So you need to adapt or get the fuck out of there. And we couldn't really adapt because we were brought up in the punk. Hey, man, this is art. We do what we do. So there's a little bit of animosity. But on the other hand, a lot of people got what we were into. They got what we were doing. So we definitely felt loved in that sense.
The biggest problem in 1989 was it was so oversaturated with bands. Oh, my gosh. They were signing everybody. Yeah. And it was really hard to stand out at that point. No matter what you did. So
exactly.
And of course, we all know between that and Risking It All, another amazing album, the whole scene changed.
The funny thing was that because we were brought up in the punk, because we knew what kind of energy we were looking for. When we saw Nirvana playing, it was like, okay, we missed that train because this is totally us. This is where we are coming from. And I mean, the band that maybe was the most prolific influence on No Fuel Left for the Pilgrims, other than ourselves. That was a Finnish band called Smack. Mm-hmm. They didn't do anything, and nothing happened, but they had this kind of very sleazy blues thing going on. Without being hair metal, they had the same energy. And lo and behold, it turns out that Nirvana were totally influenced by Smack as well. So, and Nirvana played covers of our favorite Finnish band. So we knew that we were on the same page, but we've been lured into, okay, the energy is here. Okay, if it's hair metal, the bandwagon, okay, let's see if we can tag along a little bit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was funny to be wiped out by Nirvana, knowing that this is our music. That was funny.
That's crazy.
But the thing is that we're lucky because we have this schizophrenic career. So we were at that point also big stars in Scandinavia. So we just thrived on that, and this whole flipping wasn't that much over here. So we could just keep on keeping on. But definitely, if you jump a bandwagon too much, of course you'll become dated very fast as well. So it's a fine line.
Well, that's why I felt bad for bands like yourself, because you were kind of lumped into them, but on the other hand too, you were your own entity as well. I thought Risking It All was an amazing album, a transitional album from 80s into 90s. I thought you did some really cool stuff on there. When I start going back and look at the songs, I'm like, these guys DAD was perfect for the night. I mean, Sleeping My Day Away, that's like a great kind of slacker sounding song. It would have been perfect, but
exactly.
So it didn't happen. But like you said, you had something to fall back on, and what maybe some American fans don't realize is since Risking It All, if my math is correct, you've put 9 or 10 studio albums out, and you've had an amazing career. I'm still to this day, after listening to you guys for nearly 40 years, I couldn't put you in a category other than just hard rock.
Exactly, that's what we say ourselves. We cannot. You can maybe sometimes say classic rock, but not all the albums. So hard rock is the only way to put it.
Yeah. And I can't even think of another band that really you sound like, which is a compliment as big as I can get. Because
that's definitely a compliment. Thank you so much.
Another band, we talked about Finland bands, and I've talked to Michael Monroe before as well, and Hanoi Rocks had a similar kind of problem. They kind of came from punk, but they got thrown into that glam scene and had a little trouble maneuvering around there. Your fans stick with you. That's the cool thing. They appreciate, I think, what you guys do. And
it's a funny thing because you're in dialogue with your fans, and it's so great to because we have this schizophrenic career. So we're a big artist in Scandinavia, but when we go south of the border, when we go tour the rest of Europe, it's old friends. It's like we've got 800, 1,200, 2,000 people who know our catalog, who knows the old songs, knows the new songs, and knows how this whole thing has been for us and for them. And when you have this dialogue going, suddenly it's worth much more than commercial success in that sense, because then I'm an artist. I'm doing a piece of work here. I'm doing a piece of art. That's great, because in Denmark, yes, it's great. The money's here, and the ability to put on great shows. But there's also people who just see us as mainstream and just go to and from DAD. Whereas the real fans, then you really feel that you are in some kind of dialogue.